Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of CronYo Media. Now, we've been saying for the last couple weeks that we do not have a name for this, but I think we finally found one with the help of AI name generator, because I'm not going to lie, we were putting our heads together on this for weeks. We were getting nowhere. Knockout Analysis is going to be the name of this podcast. So that being said, hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of CronYo Media. This is Knockout Analysis, presented by CronYo Media, where we'll go into depth about combat sports. That being said, got a couple announcements to make. If you're a long-time follower of CronYo Media, then you will know at one point we did have a sponsorship deal with an MMA fighter from our hometown that went pro, Mr. Tracy Reeder. The first time fell through on both ends, just inexperience. But that being said, can confirm that I have sponsored him for one fight. He has a fight coming up in April. I have sponsored him for that fight, and we are going to have our logo either on his shirt or on his banner. Either one. We're supporting the hometown legend Tracy Reeder.
Rogers County.
We have that. Rogers County. Go Zeebs. That being said, we will have him on for an interview sometime soon. We just got to get with him and figure out his schedule, because last thing we want to do is interrupt his fight camp and keep him from winning that fight, because, we can't be supporting him if he ain't going to kick some ass. Nah, I'm just playing. Tracy, win or lose, you're our boy. And we're proud of you and everything that you've done so far. So, that being said, there's your first big announcement. Second big announcement. For me, check it out. It'll be up later tonight. I also have another podcast that's just me, not my friend Whit, called Fuel Injected. Yesterday I did an interview with a driver of a monster truck who's actually on the pro tour. Go check that out. I'll have that posted tonight. On to the UFC. First of all, I predicted it. Whit did not. Leon Edwards got absolutely clobber fucked by Sean Brady. Just had to throw that out there.
Absolutely owned.
Last week was one of our worst combined predictions known to man. I think we both went, 5, 6, and 7?
No,
5 and 8?
Not good enough, No,
not good. And we had different reasons for not being good. We both picked people like Kutataladze, got demolished. Tybura, he won, but just barely. But we both picked Tybura to win. Blachowicz, however, I always fuck it up. However you say his name, I thought he won the fight. He got hoed. The second fight of that card, Nathan Fletcher and Kyle Loughran, was an absolute joke. Fletcher got absolutely robbed in his home country. I've never seen anything like it. He dominated that whole fight, and Loughran somehow got the win.
Yeah, I think Fletcher won 2 rounds in that one, But as far as prediction goes, I don't think anybody picked Vucinic to lose and Kutateladze to both lose on the same card, especially in the manner they did. They both got dominated. It wasn't even close. They looked like they didn't even belong. And, sometimes that's just what happens with the sport, man. Vucinic might be done.
Didn't he get submitted?
Yeah, he got submitted in the second round. And he looked like a much weaker fighter, Like, Chris Duncan is much more physically strong, especially for featherweight. Like, he put him in a damn guillotine. Absolutely clobbered him for 1.5 round.
Don't think you're off the fucking hook, buddy.
Shit.
You won, and you looked a lot better than you have been. I will give you that. And you are fun to watch, but you're still a fucking bum. Next.
Brandon Moreno fight week. Brandon Moreno
fight week. There
Brandon
you go.
Moreno.
I have not heard this week who his fight week was. Like we talked about last week. Check it out if you haven't already. When he says somebody fight week, that is one of his locks to win.
First ever main event I've picked in our 3 episodes. It's Brandon Moreno fight week. We'll get to it much later in this video. But Brandon Moreno.
Much later. But first, we got to start at the bottom. Now we're here. We have, starting us off, Markel Medeiros versus Austin Hubbard. Tell me what you got on these two, Mr. Barnes.
Well, man, Austin Hubbard and Alexander Hernandez, which they both fought recently. I think they're both like generational choke artists, and they're not great at any area of the sport. And whenever they fought, it was like, damn, which one of these guys is going to blow it? And it could have really went either way. You know, he's a guy I would never pick. And, you know, Medeiros is much younger. He's much more game. He's been training for a fight. People are saying this is short notice. Now, he was training for a fight. You know, it's going to be at altitude. And I think Hubbard's going to gas out a lot quicker than Medeiros is. He's younger. He's a lot more hungry. He hasn't lost as many fights. You know, he's 1-0 in the UFC. Got a knockout in the Contender Series. It's a pretty easy pick for me. I agree. I mean, the line, you know, take Medeiros, man. Take Medeiros. Minus 170 isn't bad money to give up. You know, I don't really believe in Austin Hubbard. You know, he doesn't get a lot of finishes. He's not very threatening, you could say.
Whenever your nickname in the UFC is Thud, that usually isn't a good sign for you. That usually means you're thudding off the canvas, buddy. But yeah, you got Markel Medeiros, 9-1 in his pro career, 1-0 in the UFC, 6 knockouts and 9 wins. Obviously, we know what he's there to do. Hubbard, 17-8, slightly less impressive, 1-2 in the UFC. You get him on the ground and you put him in a submission, you've got a 40% chance you're going to submit him according to his record, because he's 2-3 in submission finishes. I think this is a no-brainer as well. I'm going Medeiros, and I'm going to say Medeiros by whatever he wants, honestly. Maybe he'll get his first submission win.
And, you know, Austin Hubbard has been cut from the UFC already. You know, he wasn't super impressive in his first go-around. He's 1-2. He lost to, like, a 37-year-old Kurt Holobaugh, which Kurt Holobaugh, I think, got robbed pretty recently here. But, you know, not super impressed with him. You know, he can beat jobbers, but that's really about it. You know, I don't think Medeiros is a jobber.
No.
That
Medeiros looks like he's got a good future.
Mm-hmm. Definitely has very twitchy with the hands. But we got Joshua Emmers, and we got Gabriel Fly Miranda. Is he a fly on the wall? Is like, I don't know. I don't know where it came from. But pretty boy Jamal Emmers doesn't have it much better either. And, you know, as far as nicknames go, but, you know, I think he's going to have an athletic advantage in this fight from top to bottom.
I also forgot to mention something that I wanted to say about Hubbard. I believe he's the only fighter in the UFC circuit that has got the face scan card of a koi fish. But
he's
on
got
to the next fight. He's got the facial card of a koi fish. One of them big-ass fish that you see in a koi pond. That's what he looks like. Look it up.
We'll have to make an edit and make that as on the YouTube video. We'll have to make that the tag or whatever it is. But, yeah, we'll have to make it the background of the video. But, man, Jamal Emmers, he's been in there with some decent guys, you know. Giga Chikadze's no joke. Took him to a split decision a few years ago. And he's athletic, but he's really inconsistent. But one thing, you know, that I look at here, looking through his record, is he's never lost 2 fights in a row. And I don't think it's going to start today. I think he's going to have his way, you know. There's a lot to consider, you know. I think Emmers could gas out, especially because this is at elevation. And Miranda, you know, he's from Brazil, you know. And he is also, actually, never mind, he has lost 2 in a row. And he is 1-2 in the UFC, less experienced. Lost one of those fights to Benoit Saint Denis, pretty good. Lost one of those fights to Charrier, who we talked about last week. Mm-hmm. You know, I think the line is absolutely clobberfucked. I think the line is, you know, I think it's a little bit out of hand, especially because this is at elevation, and Emmers can guess out or he can get caught in a submission or knocked out. I think it's more of a 50-50 fight, but I'm going to rock with Emmers because he has the reach advantage and he has more experience in there with higher level guys.
So, I want to point something out. Gabriel Miranda has 17 wins. 16 of those wins are by submission. If there's a submission involved, he is 16-0. He is 1-3 in knockouts. He's got one knockout in his pro career, and all 16 of his other wins have come from submission. You look at a guy like Jamal Emmers, his submission defense appears to be somewhat lacking. He's 3-2 in these decisions when it comes, or if it's a submission, he's 3-2. To me, that speaks wonders for someone like Miranda. Obviously, if you're 16-0 in submissions and he's 3-2, we want this fight on the ground. We also have a kickboxer in Emmers versus a grappler in Miranda. Fly Miranda seems like he's all about these submissions. He's that annoying guy that you play against online in UFC that only wants to submit you. Pretty boy Emmers, he needs to keep this fight off the ground. I don't think he does it. However, I think Gabriel Miranda wins this by third round submission.
Hell yeah. Can never go against the Brazilians, man.
You can't. You really can't. Every time you try, they show you why you can't. Next fight, we have Rafa Garcia versus, I'm assuming, Vince Pichel, even though they spelt that in the worst way possible. We have a huge favorite in Garcia in this fight. Huge. Negative 550 is the line for him. Like, that is a huge favoritism. We've got Garcia 16-4, Pichel 14-4. Another submission guy in Garcia here. He's more of a boxer and grappler type, whereas Pichel is more of the striker. You got 3-2 in your last last 5 fights for Garcia. If you're looking at Pichel, however, by the way, Rafa gifted Garcia. And then you're looking at a guy like Vince Pichel from America. Garcia's from Mexico. Vince Pichel's name is from hell. So Vince from Hell Pichel is a very catchy name. But this guy, I'm going to assume, after he gets absolutely clobber fucked in the ring this week, because I'm picking Garcia by whatever he wants, is going to take those 2 little 4-ounce gloves off of his hands and put them down in the middle of the ring, because you're 42, bud. You ain't got nothing left to prove. Hang him up.
Yeah, I mean, he's 42. He has 1 fight in the last 3 years. He's going to Mexico. And, I think that's a lot to overcome. Vince Pichel's very good on the ground. If he's going to win it, it's going to be by sub, but I don't think Garcia is going to gas out nearly enough. He's in the prime of his career at lightweight at 30 years old. And, Vince Pichel, Vince from Hell Pichel, despite him having a very badass nickname, I'm not going to take him in this fight because the age and the altitude that, I don't think he'll be able to bridge that gap. And then, after this old off, we have 2 women fighters. We have Polastri right here. I didn't really do a lot of research on this one. I can't even lie to you. Julia Polastri. And we got Godinez over here.
First Lupi Godinez, by the way. Lupi Godinez, that's our first ranked fight. Lupi Godinez is number 11 in that division. Polastri is not ranked. So go ahead.
I mean, man, I look at her last 3 opponents. That tells me a lot right there. Mackenzie Dern, she's top 8 in the division. Berna Jandaroba is 1 weight away from a title shot. Tabitha Ricci, who she beat by split decision, also ranked in that division. She's been in there with high-level fighters. She's 31. She's in the prime of her career. As far as her Brazilian counterpart in this fight, she's a lot younger. She does have a reach advantage. They're both 5'2", but she hasn't been in there with anybody that's great. Josephine Knudsen got cut recently. Corey McKenna got cut recently. Those are your only 2 fights. That's your biggest competition, or 2 ladies that got cut pretty recently. And you're about to fight someone who's been in there with the best of the best in her motherland. Now, I'll say it every single card, women's MMA, there is never value on a favorite, especially at 2.5. But, I wouldn't put any money on Palostri. I don't think she has too much of a chance in the motherland of Godinez, and I think she's going to show levels in this fight.
I look at kind of what you said. Godinez in her last 2 fights, great opponents, but she lost both of them. We got Palostri here. She hasn't lost since she's made it to the UFC, I believe. Let me fact check myself. That's a beautiful thing about internet. She has lost. Okay, she did lose. She's 2-1 technically in the UFC if you want to count the Contender Series. If not, 1-1. Either way, her nickname's the Psycho. If you look at a nice little face picture of her, she looks like you could do everything right. Do the dishes, do everything, this, that, and the third in her house. And she's still going to cut the brake lines of your car when you're driving, so that way you can't stop and you crash. She's crazy. These little UFC fighter women, man, they're insane. That's why they're so hard to bet on. They could be in a fit of rage one time, and they just Rose Namajunas. That's what they look like. G.I. Jane. Like, I don't know what to tell you. These people are insane. I'm not going with the favorite in this one. Give me Palostri, and I think she wins by knockout.
Hell yeah.
Round 3.
Fading the lady in her motherland.
Yeah, fading the lady in her motherland. Hey,
Shit.
Leon Edwards got faded in his motherland.
2 times, 2 fights in a row, man. He can never come back to London.
No. Next fight, we got Christian Rodriguez as a slight favorite against Melquizael Costa. I assume. I'll just call him the purple-haired man. Actually, what's his...
Milk coffee, bro.
Milk
Whatever
coffee. I mean, 22-7, 7-2 in knockouts, 8-2 in submissions, 3-2 in his last 5 all UFC fights. He's been at this for a little bit. I mean, let's take a look at his opponent here. We got Christian Rodriguez, the American. Costa from Brazil. You got 4-1 in your last 5 for Christian Rodriguez. 3 knockouts in his 12 wins, 4 submissions. His last 5 fights have also all been UFC fights. This fight has a slight advantage to Rodriguez. I think the line's accurate. I think purple-haired man is going to lose this fight via unanimous decision.
I mean, it's a very interesting fight, I faded both of these guys in the last fight. So, it's tough because Christian Rodriguez, he's the prospect killer is what he's known as. That should be his nickname at this point. Because back to back to back to back to back, right? He beat Raul Rosas Jr., who we'll speak on later, Cameron Saimon, Isaiah Dulgarian, lost to a 37-year-old man, and then beat Austin Bashi, who was 13-0 and looked great on the Contender Series. I didn't have him win in that fight, but he dominated the fight. He stuffed all the takedowns. He did his thing. And then we got Costa over here, man, who went up against Andre Fili, who's a seasoned vet, who's been in there with killers for his whole entire career. And not only was he owning him on the feet, he forced Andre Fili to, he forced him to try to take him down. That was a mistake because Costa's very good on the ground, and he got guillotined or rear naked choked very, very quickly into that fight within the first round. I think this is a toss-up, but, since Christian Rodriguez is not going up against a man in his late 30s, I'm going to have to go with him, depending on where this fight takes place. I think if it stays on the feet, it's going to favor Rodriguez. If it goes to the ground, Costa is very physically strong there. So, but I'm gonna favor Rodriguez based off his last performance. I think it's a little bit more impressive.
Yeah, I see that you are you're much more versed on Mr. Rodriguez than I was, which is fine. That's why we do this together. We have an interesting one, however. The first Bolivian fighter I've seen since we've been doing this, Jose Daniel Medina versus Atiba Gautier, I assume, the Cameroon guy. I'm not really sure what to think about this. They've got Gautier as a heavy favorite against Medina. 6'4", 185 for Gautier is insane height for middleweight. That's crazy work. It seems like we have I'm going to blank on his name now, but we had a guy in our very first card that we talked about out of the Democratic Republic of Congo. He was 8-0 with 7 knockouts. This guy's 6-1 with 5 knockouts. I believe they are, they call this guy the Silent Assassin, so that's a scary name for somebody to have. 22 years old, making his UFC second fight? No, UFC debut. He's only fought in the Contender Series. All 5 of his last 6 fights, or all 5 of his last 5 fights have been either first round knockouts or second round knockouts. It's crazy finishing power from this guy. And then we've got Mr. Medina, who I believe has an insane nickname. Oh no, someone else. This guy's nickname is Chicho. He's 11-4, 8 knockouts, 2 submissions. Looks like he's just kind of old. He's a lot older. So I'm going to agree with the line on this one. I'm going to believe the hype once more on a first-time UFC prospect with huge knockout power, and I'm going with Gautier by knockout round 1.
Oteba Gautier, man. For those of you that aren't aware, this man is a brick shit house. Like, this dude is an absolute specimen. Just like
6'4",
another
185.
Amen. Just like another man from Cameroon that fought at heavyweight for a very long time, Francis Ngannou. He is a big, big man. And, he has an amateur boxing background. I watched his Contender Series fight, and he looked really good in it. His wrestling's going to be a little suspect, especially early on, but he's young, and as long as the UFC is cautious with who they put him in there with and let him develop, he's going to be a very, very good fighter. But he has to get through Medina first at altitude, which is a concern. Jose Medina took a lot of damage in his Contender Series fight. He actually lost, but he took so much damage that Dana White gave him a contract, and he lost his first fight to Zachary Reese, who's a decent fighter, nothing special, nothing great, but I don't think he's going to be shooting takedowns. I don't think he's going to be able to survive Gautier. A lot of people are talking about the elevation, but, Gautier trains at a good gym out of Manchester top team, and I believe they're going to have him there. They're going to have him well-conditioned. I think he's going to be the first guy to finish Medina. I think he's going to do it with a brutal bus driver uppercut. Probably about the first 2 rounds. I don't think Medina's going to have a whole lot for him, especially on the feet. I think he's going to be shooting takedowns and bailing them.
I feel like that's probably accurate. I think that's our bonus right there for knockout of the night. Mm-hmm. If Dana feels like giving one out. We got Edgar Chairez versus CJ Vergara. We have I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I believe we have a mid-off here, is what I'm seeing. We have 11-6 versus 12-6. I believe this is a qualification for a mid-off. We've got Chairez, whose nickname is Puro Chicali. Sure, whatever that means. I don't speak of the Spanish. Yeah, looking at his last 5 fights, he has a no contest in there. Wonder what that was all about. He's 2-1 with the no contest. Vergara What is your nickname? I'm preparing myself for it because someone in here has an insane nickname that I'm not even sure if I can say, but I'm probably gonna anyways. Vargera is 3 losses, 2 wins in his last 5, all 5 UFC fights. This is a mid-off. I don't really care who wins, but I'll just go with the line and say Chavez wins this fight by probably split decision because they're both that mid.
Well, man, I'm going to agree with you on Chavez. You know, Edgar Chavez, he looked great against Joshua Fan. Joshua Fan's a rising star in the UFC at this moment. But CJ Vergara, the J stands for jobber. Because this guy gets finished in his fights. Like, you can say, oh, he went in there and Ramazan Tamirov did Ciro Tyra, man. And Amabayev, he got finished in 2 or 3 of those fights. He's not in there, like, surviving against these high-level guys. On top of that, Amabayev's not much of a finishing threat anyways. He's here to beat you 30-27. You know, I don't even know the guys he's beaten. Like, this guy is beating guys that I don't think are in the UFC anymore. It was almost Edgar Chavez fight week, but he is 11-6, you know, and I'm not going to give him credit for losing a fight. But I think this line's accurate. He's in his motherland against one of the apex predators, or an apex jobber, I might even add. You know, I don't like to throw jobber around too much like I am right now, but this guy is the jobber of the flyweight division. And
so the last person that he beat the last person that he fought and lost to did just fight March 1st. He fought Ramazan Tamirov.
Yeah, Tamirov's a problem.
Yeah, and the last person that he beat, he fought May 18th, 2024 was his last fight, and that was Vinicius Salvador.
That's 3-5 losing streak.
I don't even think judging by how long it's been, I don't even think he's on the roster anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that just furthers the point that we were trying to make. On to the next one. We have Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Kevin Borjas. The first fighter out of Peru that I've seen as well. And that's the one. He's the one.
Oh, shit.
He is the one with the nickname. Mind you, I'm just saying his nickname. El Gallo Negro. The Black Rooster. He's not even black. He's from Peru. So why would you call yourself the Black Rooster? It makes no sense. That being said, Borjas by knockout round 2.
You're taking the nickname? You're taking him over Sleepy? You're taking him over Sleepy Rodriguez?
I'm taking him over Sleepy Rodriguez.
Or Lazy Boy, yep. Yeah. Well, man, Lazy Boy Rodriguez, man, he looked good in his last fight. That fight could have gone either way with Ode Osborne. You know, he's in his motherland. He's 2-0 in the UFC. He did lose probably to the worst flyweight in UFC history at the Dana White Contender Series about 5 years ago. But he's young. He's in his motherland. And, you know, I think the rooster has crowed for the last time. I'm Ronaldo Rodriguez by decision.
I like Ronaldo Rodriguez. The problem is if you have the confidence to name yourself the Black Rooster when you're not black, you have to win. So I got to go with him.
Well, I'd say he's probably getting cut if he loses because of that, man.
That's what I'm saying, man.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we've got David Martinez versus, I'm going to assume, some Simon Oliveira. Man, these guys, man, and these fucking names. He has no nickname. He's 18-5, 5 wins by knockout, 11 wins by submission, 10 first-round finishes in his career. This guy is no jobber. And he is fighting David Martinez. Come on, stupid computer. David Martinez, give me these stats. He's 1-0 in the UFC, it appears. 11-1 in his career. They call this guy the Black Spartan. The Black Spartan, he does not have a whole lot of information about him currently. But he is 11-1 in his pro career. Let me see if I can figure out if this really is. I believe it is, but is this really his UFC debut? I'm pretty sure it is.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I can confirm.
UFC debut. This guy fought in Combate Global. He was a champion in that league. He defended his belt, it looks like, at least 4 times, and then got an invite to come do the Contender Series. So this guy knows what it takes to be a champion in any league. I think this guy is probably the truth. In his pro career, he has 9 knockouts and in his 11 wins. I got him by second round TKO.
Mm-hmm. Well, David Martinez is the real deal. I watched his fight with Xavier Franklin, and it was an absolute banger. This dude can really, if anybody's watched Yusuf Zalal fight before on the feet, David Martinez is like that, but he's really crisp with his hands as well. I really like David Martinez. I think he has a lot to offer. I think he's been more active. Oliveira hasn't fought in 2 years. He's in his motherland, which I'm just picking all the damn Mexican fighters because this is their motherland, and they're going to be fighting with a chip on their shoulder. That's how they do it, and they're in their motherland.
The Brits were going to be doing the same thing.
They don't have much heart as these dudes do. I believe at least. But
they lost to a bunch of rednecks with muskets.
You went in there, you fought Xavier Franklin. I might even take Xavier Franklin to beat Oliveira. This dude's not active. He's 33. He hasn't won a fight in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, And on top of that, 26, 29-month layoff. I'm going to have to go David Martinez. Will he get a finish? If he does, it'll be late. I think about a third-round TKO, and I'm gonna take that.
Well, we talked about this next one earlier, and you were going off on it a little bit, so I'm going to let you take the lead on Mr. Raul Rosas Jr. And
wee woo, fraud alert. That's what we have right here.
No.
Raul Rosas Jr., he's young, and people really like his personality. They love the Chihuahuas. He's a fan favorite right now. But guess what, man? He's beaten a bunch of jobbers. And Ricky Tercios is decent. No disrespect to you, Ricky Tercios. But he went to absolute life or death with this Chinese bantamweight, who I'm not even going to try to pronounce names. Actually, I'm going to. Auric Ling. Went to an absolute war with him. And this guy has literally just been very inconsistent throughout his career. He's fought in different weight classes. And he just loses. He loses to really high-level fighters. And, if you're going to be in here, man, you're going to be hyping yourself up as that guy, I don't think he is, man. Vince Morales has been in here with many ranked bantamweights. He's beaten Ayman Zahabi. He's been in there with Jonathan Martinez. Elijah Smith is a great prospect that he just lost to pretty recently. Very close fight. Taylor Lapidus is 21-4. Miles Johns has hands. Jonathan Martinez has great kicks. He's been in there with the who's who of this division. And honestly, man, none of these names that I mentioned, he's only been finished one time. I think he's going to have a lot more to offer on the feet, and I think that's the biggest holes in Rosas Jr.'s games. His hands and his kicks are not super crisp. And if this goes to the ground, he might sub Morales, but I'm going to go against him. I would not, under any circumstances, put $500 down to win $100 on him at all. The plus 350 is absolutely where the value is. I think this is closer to a 50-50 fight, but this is a step up in competition for Rosas, and, I'm not going to pick him.
Strong words on the fraud alert from Mr. Barnes. You got Vince Vendetta Morales, not Vendetta, Vendetta, versus Raul Rosas Jr. El Nino Problema, which I do believe, I again am not fluent in Spanish, I do believe that translates to the problem child. That's a pretty sick nickname, I can't lie. But like you said, you have concerns about that JOBBER word that we throw around to some people being the people that he's beat. I'm going to disagree here. I'm going to say that I don't like the line by any means, But I think Rosas Jr. wins this fight by unanimous decision.
Mexico.
Yes. On to the next one. We've got... I feel like... I just have a feeling that you love something about this fight. And no, we haven't talked about this fight before or anything. These two guys seem like Whit guys. We've got Kelvin Gastelum versus Joe Pyfer. Go ahead and tell me your thoughts on these two fine gentlemen. These two daughter daters, if you will.
Going to be an absolute banger. Kelvin Gastelum is a tank. He has never been finished in the UFC. He's a previous title challenger, and he's fought multiple generations of fighters. In his last fight, it was very controversial. He won by decision because he moved down to welterweight, but he missed weight by quite a few pounds. And he went back up to middleweight. He wants to make it right. He loves fighting for the UFC. But, man, I'm really torn on this one because Joe Pyfer, man, he goes out there and he puts his damn legacy on the line in all his fights. Jack Hermansson's a tough puzzle for anybody to solve. It's his first 5-round fight. He comes out there, loses the fight 3-2, loses the last 3 rounds, and then, he goes in there, he cleans it up, beats Marc-Andre Barrial by KO. Like, this dude finishes fights, and he is a problem. The problem is you have an unstoppable force versus an immovable object. Kelvin Gastelum, who's never been finished, and Joe Pyfer, who only knows finishes. I don't agree with the line. I think I'm favoring Joe Pyfer. I think he's going to win this fight. But it's going to be an absolute war. I think every dog has its day, and this might be Kelvin Gastelum's day and the first time he gets finished.
I think you're right. I think there's one huge glaring discrepancy here, and that's height. You've got a 6'2" body bags Pyfer going against a 5'9" Gastelum. And like you said, Gastelum is a journeyman. He's been fighting a lot of people. He's been around a long time. He's been fighting plenty of people. He's challenged for the title. Body bags is 4-1 in his last 5, 2-3 for Gastelum. This looks like kind of like what you said. I believe Gastelum might find his way to the canvas for the first time. Take a nice little dirt nap. I got body bags by knockout round 2.
Amen. That's gonna be honestly. His last 3 fights are gonna be very, very cool.
Next fight we got Manuel Torres versus Drew Dober. And this is a very close fight on paper. They're pretty much saying what it looks like, that this one could go either way. What do you got on these two? What do you got on El Loco, Manuel Torres, and Drew Dober?
I mean, man, a lot of guys probably don't know these guys. They might know who Drew Dober is, but man, fight finishers is all I gotta say. Drew Dober went life and death with Gene Silva. He would have continued in that fight, but he was bleeding. And Gene Silva's the hottest prospect in the UFC right now. And we'll talk about him on the Miami card here in a few weeks. But he's been in there with a bunch of different lightweights. He's beat King Green a few years ago when he was ranked. He's beaten Terrence McKinney, Hack Perez has a pretty good win. He's finishing these guys, by the way. He's getting a lot of knockouts. He's nasty on the feet. And he seldomly gets submitted. But it's the same way on the other side, You got Torres, who is going to be younger by 6 years, who is going to have a reach advantage, but that's not really going to matter to Drew Dober, This could be a passing of the guard, though. Drew Dober is on a 2-fight losing streak, granted against really good guys, but Manuel Torres in his motherland, I'm going to have to lean that way. This is truly a 50-50 fight. This fight is for the fans, though. And if you're watching this card, you're in for a banger, man. I think either of these last 3 fights could be fight of the night. It's hard for me to predict. I'll pick one at the end, though, because I have to.
I urge people to not look at just records in this, because if you look at this fight and you look at just records, you're thinking this is the easiest fight Torres has ever been given in his life. Because you think 27-14 for Dober, but then you take into account that he's been a professional MMA fighter since 2009. This guy has been doing this a very long time. He's fought some very high-profile guys. I'm sure he's probably on his last leg of his UFC career, and he's got to start winning if he wants to do anything before he retires. But this is a very close fight. It's going to be a drag out. I give the advantage here to Torres simply due to the something that you've been driving home all night. He's fighting in his motherland. So I think if this fight's anywhere close, although the judges shouldn't be biased, they probably will be, simply because it's in Mexico and he's Mexican. So I got Manuel Torres by split decision. On to the main event of the evening, Mr. Barnes. You go ahead and do the honors and get us started. Oh, fourth round finish. We have a prediction from our Nostradamus, Mr. Whit Barnes. Again, already well hammered home. We've got the Brandon Moreno versus Steve Ercheg. We have the Assassin Baby. I couldn't remember his nickname, so I was stalling. Versus Astro Boy Erceg. I am tending to agree with you on this one. This fight's not close. I think this is a second round knockout for Moreno. I think he wipes his hands clean of this. Then I think he goes off and he gets his chance at the title again and absolutely clobberfucks the champion, and then starts his run as a title holder for, I'm not even going to say for a Demetrius Johnson type beat, because no one's doing that again. The Mighty Mouse was absolute crack cocaine infused every time he fought. Owned every single one of them. Well, there you have it. That is our predictions for the Mexico City Moreno versus Erceg card. This card happens on Saturday. We tried to get this one done a little bit earlier in the week in case we need to come back again at a later date. to update anything quite. So, like if there's a last minute cancellation and they throw a guy in there or something of that nature, we will let you guys know if anything like that happens. But again, big updates. We have an interview coming up with a fighter that we both know personally. He's a professional UFC fighter out of our hometown, Tracy Reeder, fighting on XFN cards at River Spirit Casino. He will be doing an interview with us. We have partnered up with him for one fight for a sponsorship. We will see how this one goes, and then we'll think about doing it again. It's always a thought because he's one of our very good friends. That being said, do not forget to check out our other podcasts under CronYo Media. Eventually, we'll stop dragging our feet. I'm thinking probably a deadline for us to start doing the actual sports talk show podcast is going to be NFL draft time. We can start talking about the draft process. One thing that's very interesting about us is I'm very quarterback oriented and he's very quarterback oriented. We have different ways of comparing quarterbacks, so it'd be fun to sit there and think about our different predictions with the quarterbacks. But like I said, we'll update the people on when we're going to start doing that again, because we really haven't talked about it a whole lot. There's too many UFC card bangers right now for us to worry about all that stuff. Check out Fuel Injected. Like I said, I'm rehard launching that one. I've got the podcast and the interview with the monster truck driver. That'll be up probably later tonight, if not early tomorrow. Check all that stuff out. Also check out Shank It Golf. Use code CronYo Media at checkout for 15% off your order. Funny golf attire, serious golf attire. They've got something for everybody. Check out Cowboy Revolution. If you're into that cowboy fashion, but you're not quite ripped from Yellowstone, go ahead and check out them. They've got some lo-fi cowboy stuff for you. Use code CronYo Media at checkout with them for 10%. Finally, and my longest partner, my very first one, W.GG. Check them out. Gamer Substance, Gamer Fuel. Kind of like G Fuel, but better. Kind of like G Fuel, but better. Not crack. Not crack. We don't do drugs. Long dick style. We don't do drugs. But check out W.GG. Code CronYo Media at checkout with them for 10% off your order. That being said, this has been Knockout Analysis. We finally have a name with your boy Cron and your boy Whit. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate you guys for tuning in, checking it out. Probably hear my garage door shutting right now, but I don't care. We don't edit. We just go. We do all this in one take. Shout out Whit's internet for not being spotty like his Washington, D.C. hotel internet was, because that shit was ass. We lost audio out of a few parts of that I didn't realize until I had already posted it and was listening to it on my way to work. And I said, I thought my thing froze. Whit's just not talking. His audio's just not there. But it is what it is. This is what happens when you run a sports media company as a podcast. Growing pains. But I will say this. We appreciate you all watching. Check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. This man right here, that guy to my left, is going to be in charge of running our Twitter to start arguments with jobbers to get them to interact with us on Twitter. So I'm excited to see what he has with that. Check us out on Instagram. There is Fuel Injected Instagram. There is CronYo Media Instagram. 2 different ones. I'll update the people on that as well. We appreciate you guys. Love the support. And we'll see y'all in the next one. This has been Knockout Analysis. Watch out for the deer and the jobbers. Long dick style.